So you're listening to Doug Pagitt Radio, broadcasting live out of the Twin Cities. For those of you who are picking up on the video stream, we stay live, and those of you who are listening on the audio podcast, right in the middle, going to be joined in a moment by Heather Lynn. I can see that she has come into the building.
Oh, yay!
So she's ready. But I wanted to reflect a little bit. People have been asking. I know, they've been begging to know, how did the marathon go?
Yeah, so tell us.
I mean, people have just been, it's
26.
It's been nonstop, 26.2 miles.
That's what I'm calling you.
It was great. Victoria, you ran it as well, but it pulled up with an injury and did the wise thing and said, you'll be back to run another day.
I've never gotten so much praise for failure in my life. I mean, I got a lot of love and support from my friends for pulling out, which helped my devastation.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, there is something about empathy that human beings have the capacity to show empathy even greater than admiration.
Yeah.
Right, because admiration's always got a little tinge of, one's own failure in it, right? When someone does great at something, there can be a sense for someone that like, oh, geez, I should do that, or I wish I had done that, or I tried something once. But when somebody else struggles, you're like, I get that 100%.
Yeah.
I'm fully in on that. Failure is totally accessible.
Well, and a lot of my friends were really worried that I was going to hurt myself, so they were happy that I didn't hurt myself further.
Yeah, well, congratulations for running in the marathon.
I have to say, I feel genuinely excited and happy for you.
Oh, that's kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, it went great. It was my second marathon. First one I ran, I was sick, and so this is the first one that I felt like I was prepared for it. I was running my mantra through my head. I'm a new runner, so it's still very very mystical and exploratory, and was really
What's your mantra? What was the mantra?
Full of a sense of what's around the corner. So running kind of felt like that, like I was going to find out what's up there and what's in me and all this. Well, I had a couple of mantras. I had the mantra from my friend Mike Stavlin, who said, run your race, don't get pulled along by the crowd. That was a big one. I had a mantra from my friend Amanda. She's a trainer, and she said, trust your training. You can do this. You're ready for this. Shelley's was breathe, breathe, breathe. And then there's a Solomon's Porch song that was running through my head.
What's that?
Breathe in glory, breathe in story, and sing out glory. And so I had these sort of phrases, and there were times where, I would just, which is the magic of these long runs, right? Where you're now going to push yourself, and there's enough social structure and context to get you to do the thing that you wanted to do, right? And the thing I find tweaky about these races are the people who line up along the side, and there are estimates on how many people. Like 200,000 people, something like this, they're saying. That seems crazy to me, but there are, many people.
Because it's a lot of miles to have people lined up on both sides of the road.
I guess you got to spread it out like that. It's like the human colon. When you unravel the whole thing, it's like
just like that.
100 miles long or whatever it is. So there were a lot of people. So you hear when one's not focusing, like I was at some moments, you hear all these different kinds of encouragements. And I have noticed now in the 2 half marathons and the marathon that I run that people, 2 marathons rather, 2 halves and 2 marathons. You don't want to miss out on that. When you're bragging, one has to fully
you gotta
brag.
Get it right.
You don't want to shortchange yourself in your own brag. It's really off-putting. It's like the worst kind of bragging. But people will yell things that somehow to them it must be motivating, or they think is winsome or funny. And I rarely do. It's like people would say, have signs or be yelling things like, remember, you paid to do this.
Yeah.
Just seriously. I don't get it. Or beer in 22 milos. Yeah. Like, really?
You really think I'm going to want a beer?
For a beer. like that's what I'm doing it for? Or, so it's
those signs aren't really for the runners, I think.
Well, but then I've heard other runners, I would like see that thing or hear that and think, wow, that's a peculiar. Then I would hear other people say like, oh, that's a good one, or like people actually appreciated it or found it to be funny, and I thought,
it's a little distracting.
So you're like in the midst of all this.
Didn't anybody say anything helpful? Like, was there anybody along the way that said something?
All the things being said are helpful. I just try not to. Which is my want, is to overly analyze what someone's saying, right? Yeah. But just the energy is really helpful. So these races allow you to do the thing that you wanted to do anyway, and it's really quite spectacular.
Give you a little structure for it, a little extra.
And now you've now you decide you're going to do that thing, right? Because as human beings, I've come to believe that we organize our lives around particular events. That could be the meeting with someone, that could be sending your kid off to school, that could be going to work in the morning. But there's like these, our lives are punctuated by an event that we have planned to do, currently aren't doing, at some point will do, and then we'll stop doing, right? So we keep orienting ourselves in real moment. And then there's the in-between times where you're kind of moving to those things and so on. So this marathon is like this really pronounced version of that, right? You run lots of miles, you do all these things, and then you do the thing you're getting ready for in this moment, right? So it's a totally like just socially fabricated activity. Like on this Sunday, October 7th, let's all meet down at 8 a.m. and we'll all get started, the 10,000 or 12,000 of us or whatever. We'll all get started. Some people will run 10 miles, some people run 26, and this is going to be the path, and people will set cones out. Like it's just all made up, right? But as a human being, because those social constructs are what give us structure to our lives and give us a place to do the things that we really want to do, it becomes really motivating and really meaningful. And so, and probably more so for someone like me who has run a lot of miles all by myself, all self-defined, right? Like today I'm running, occasionally I'd run with someone, but nothing on the scale of that distance that was not driven by just my own self-narrative. So it was a big deal. I finished much stronger than I did in my previous marathon when I was sick, so I felt really good about that. And then there was this interesting moment at mile, it's uphill in this race from miles 20 to 25. And at like mile 25 and a half, it starts a downhill for 7/10 of a mile. And that's sort of to the capital. So and there's a big cathedral, big Catholic cathedral, big church there. And I had this sense that when I was running there that if I can just get past the church at this pace, I can make it. Then I started thinking, that's kind of the way a lot of people think about life. If I could just get past the church, I think I can make it. So I was like having this reflection on
spiritual revelation.
That's the way a lot of people think. If I could get to that, get past that thing, there's this big huge deal. So one of the exciting things about these races is that they're done really well. So there's photographers and videographers. So I was looking on the website for the finishing videos, and they come up in sort of different orders. And so I'd waited a couple of days for the finishing video where they have it just past the finish line, so you're running kind of right into the camera. They finally put the one up for the hours it would include when I finished, and I click on it, and I'm 30 seconds from when I know I crossed the deal. The camera zooms in a little bit and then zooms back out, and then cuts and jumps ahead 3 minutes.
No.
Yep.
Nope.
So we used to have a segment on the show called Cripes, Come On, You Got to Be Kidding Me.
And that's all 3.
It's perfect.
That's it.
Really? All I wanted to do was just to
So you didn't see yourself cross the finish line. You
see myself finish. That's all it was just would have been a nice little bonus. Just see yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. There I am doing that thing. I finished. I wonder how I looked.
Brent and the kids watched you live cross it on the TV, and you didn't even get to see it.
So for some reason, that 3 minutes of video is cut out. It just jumps. It jumps ahead 3 minutes.
Unbelievable. Now you said it's very lonely crossing the finish line.
Yeah, because it's very lonely crossing the finish line because, well, everyone crossing the finish line is
broken down a bit
at the end of their
the first thing there is after the finish line are the emergency
right. You
tents.
can take a hard right and get a lot of attention or you can just sort of walk ahead. So it's a little. I sat down sort of right away and started chatting with other guys who were sitting down there and say congratulations and all that. So it was it was a big deal. It's a big deal. And now I did this. I was confident. I've had a long couple of days. Like I did. Then we had a little party over here, and then we had a church get together at night, and then I went to North Carolina on Monday morning early, which is not. I wouldn't advise this. Don't wake up the morning after the marathon.
How did you manage?
And get on an airplane,
especially
for 5
when
hours.
You're really
it was
tall.
uncomfortable, but I felt strong. My legs felt good. I mean, I wasn't.
You look great.
I wasn't in crisis. I wasn't in crisis at all. So I'd put off starting to run again until today. I'm going to run today. It's Wednesday. So that's 2 good days of rest. I'm going to start running because now I set my sights on the 50-mile race. which this marathon has been about. But I was trying not to train for the 50-mile race in April while this one was still coming. So now it feels daunting again. Like two days of enjoyment. This is
like just when you were starting out thinking about the marathon.
Yeah,
you got to add that much.
It feels like back in March where I'd run a half marathon and it was fine. I was comfortable and felt good about it. And then thought, how can I double that distance though? Like that's because that was at the time the furthest I had run. And now thinking, well, how am I going to do that again? That is 26.2 miles is the furthest I've run.
You don't seem to be limping or anything.
I'm not limping at all. I don't have any leg pain. I've got just a little stiffness sort of, but probably not too different than most days.
Yeah.
So now today
you're ready to roll.
Today I get ready and start on the next one. So those people who wonder about the mental health and stability of someone who runs these races, it's a really good question. And frankly,
we're all wondering.
It's a really good question about now as to, honest to goodness, what is it that motivates someone to do such things? Like what is up with that? What is up with that? And I find deep parallels to one's conversion to Christianity that I experienced as to my conversion to being a runner. They're quite similar, and both equally unexpected at different times in my life. Wasn't a religious person at all. Wasn't a runner. Got into it rather suddenly and got into it pretty seriously.
Hard and heavy.
Yeah, hard and heavy. Which is, I was with a friend in North Carolina, and he's like, "Look, I can see that coming. That's just your way of life and whatever.
You do everything that way.
So that's I feel good about that, right? It's not like something else has happened and I have this thing going on. But I think people should ask the question when someone goes through a radical reorientation of their life. What's that about? What's going on with that? How come you? And shouldn't expect an answer. This is I'm on this new kick right now, which I should tell you about sometime. But I'm on this new kick that the best questions are questions that don't suppose that there's an answer that is going to serve as its own demise. Because there's questions for which an answer does away with the question. Right? It eliminates the need for the question.
So instead,
what time is dinner? Oh, it's at 6:30 tonight. Okay, that's no longer a question, right? So that question now has gone away, right? Then there's questions that are not seeking answers in order to find their own demise, but rather they're questions that seek answers to add more perspective and fabric to that very question.
Okay.
In other words, it's not a question to be solved.
Do you have an example for us?
It's not a question to be solved. It's a question to be pondered anew based on the answer that's given. Right? So it's a fresh approach to that answer. So these are the deep ones that live with us all the time.
Tell us some.
Well, it's lots of things like am I loved? Am I valuable? Am I needed in the world? Those are questions that people ask. Some people ask regularly. The answer does not end the question. It gives new way for that question to then be lived. So it is a question. It is a wonder. It is a pursuit, but it's not the kind of question that's going to be dismissed of with the answer. So when someone goes through a conversion, someone should ask about that. They should question that, not to dismiss it or to say like, "Oh, okay, I got it. That's fine then."
Oh yeah, that feels terrible.
Yeah, when someone
asks you questions like that.
Yeah, but when someone should ask a question so that they would say like, "Well, what's all that running about?" And then when you give an answer, it makes that question more interesting. Oh, well, then is there something about this? It enriches the question.
And sometimes people ask questions badly because they expect a certain answer and they want to lecture you about your answer.
Right.
That's
right. That's
yuck.
that. Yeah, I think that's right. And sometimes we do that to ourselves, right? We will endeavor either with ourselves or with someone else into a question that we are asking only as the setup or the excuse to thereby deliver an opinion.
Yes.
as opposed, and this is a big thing, right? Because I run around in circles as you do with people who are thinking about this way of phrasing and framing their spiritual lives as, I'm more interested in questions than I am answers. Okay, this kind of thing. I get the sentiment of that. I just don't think that's says it very well. I think a better way to say it is, I'm as interested in questions and answers as much as they contribute to making one another better. Right? Not I just want the questions.
That there's a synergy between these two things that creates something else.
Yes. That a right good answer to a really good question makes that question even better. And makes the next answer even more alive. And that's a much better way, in my view, to look at some kinds of questions rather than competing one against the other. So I think that, when someone like me is a runner, people should ask, and they will often, like, well, how did that happen, and what's going on with that, and not to like have their concerns alleviated, but to find it interesting. And I think one should do that with themselves. Right? We should think about the questions of our own lives, the big questions of our own lives. What motivates us? What are we up to? What's driving us? Why this versus that? Not because they're problematic, but because they're a way of making those very experiences even richer.
And this links back to what Carla was saying, and it might be one of the things that contributes to. Yeah. That's why you have me.
Wow.
So this idea, like, we might keep each other stuck or allow ourselves to maintain stuck by not supporting each other or ourselves when we do embark in something new. Saying to ourselves, well, that's not me. Like, that was a big deal for me, becoming a runner. I've never been athletic. I've never played sports. So every once in a while I'd step back and say, what the hell am I doing? I'm not an athlete.
Right.
I've never,
Maybe that's why your foot hurts.
That's why they should put that little disclaimer in the marathon books. Yeah. We don't prevent poets with damaged feet from entering marathons, but we highly discourage it. But right. At any rate, if we could all think about how we can support each other in our endeavors,
that's right,
to try new things, rather than saying, families are the worst for this. I mean, my family's kind of going weirding out about the whole running thing with me, because they're not used to thinking of me that way. And then when I get hurt, it's just like, that just goes to show you shouldn't be doing that thing. And rather than coming alongside one another and saying, wow, tell me about this thing you're doing, and I'm curious about this, and how is this
fit the rest
integrating
of
with the rest of you? What's this showing you?
And
we can really help each other from staying in that 18-year-old idea of ourselves.
Yeah, who you were versus who you're going to become, and these kinds of things. Yeah. So, I get a little zen-ish about this running business. It's the most mystical thing I have done in my as an ongoing practice, and not mystical in a spirit versus body way, mystical in a fully bodily way. Like, feels magical or something. Like there's something that goes on there that's unlike things that go on at other times and places.
You don't mean mystical, like you don't feel like you're connecting to the universe or connecting to God or feeling some kind of spiritual connection? You mean mystical in that you don't understand what's happening in your body, or in that there's something I don't understand.
Yeah, well, it's just not out of body.
Okay.
Oriented.
Okay, it's within your body.
Yeah, it's
something
very present, and I'm a functional holist, so I think the spirit and body are the same thing. But sometimes when people talk mystical, they mean like, now I've transcended my body and I have this other experience. And people refer to it as like the runner's high, and I don't know anything about that. I just know that this activity and what I feel in my body feels like something that's going on in me, through me, with me, that is untapped and shows up only in certain environments. This kind of thing, yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people talk about running, because I bring it up a lot, right? Because people say, like, what are you doing, or they see, or whatever. I bring it up, and people have so many of their own reflections on it, which really help to clarify what I mean and what I don't mean to myself. Like I don't always know, right, what I mean. I can have this impression, and then I try to put words around it. I'm like, no, that's not really
It's a great way to figure out what you think.
Yeah, about what you think, to hear somebody else describe it. And they're like, oh, sometimes like if I'm having a really bad day and I'm all cloudy and I can't think straight, I just go for a run, and then I just feel so much better and more clear in my head. And like I have none of that. I have no other benefit of running. Running is not a tool to get me to some other accomplishment. It's not like, well, I'm a little tired, I'm going to go for a run so that I will feel better. There is no so that I will. It is in and of itself. It's it's very journey oriented. Like it's not a
you don't say, oh, I want to go for a run so I can eat a piece of chocolate cake.
Yes. No.
I don't think there's anybody here that's.
I can't imagine. I can't even. I'm trying to picture someone for whom that would be their motivation. Is that like I worked really hard so I can have a diet day off? I can't imagine who that would be. All right, hey, we're going to be joined by Heather Lynn. Heather Lynn is a poet and a musician, and it's just going to be fantastic. So, Heather Lynn Music. You can also go to the Doug Pagitt page on Facebook, Doug Pagitt's page, and you'll see a video of her there, and I'll give you a link to a bunch of other stuff for Heather Lynn. So, we're going to be joined by Heather Lynn here on Doug Pagitt Radio in just a moment. If you're listening on Spreaker, just go ahead and reset and listen again here in a moment, and we'll be back with Heather.